Healing by voicing pain. Introduction. Pain is not something you are meant to make peace with. Whether it shows up mentally, emotionally, or physically, pain is often an invader, an enemy that tries to take territory in your mind, your body, your relationships, and your future. It doesn't just hurt, it influences. It can shape how you think, how you trust, how you respond, and how you see yourself. If it goes unaddressed, pain doesn't simply pass. It lingers, spreads, and quietly contaminates areas of your life that once felt pure and hopeful. Unvoiced pain can act like leprosy, slow, hidden, and polluting. Leprosy separated people, numbed feeling, and caused progressive damage when left untreated. In a similar way, untreated pain can numb your joy, isolate your heart, and keep your soul in a constant state of internal infection. You may still function, smile, work, and care for others, yet inside something is decaying. Not because you are weak, but because pain was never meant to live inside you without an exit. This book is about refusing to let pain rule in silence. Healing by voicing pain will teach you how to confront pain with truth instead of hiding it, minimizing it, or carrying it alone. You will learn how to give pain language so it stops living in your body as tension, in your mind as torment, and in your spirit as heaviness. You will discover the difference between suffering quietly and healing intentionally, because what stays trapped stays powerful, but what is voiced becomes reachable, processable, and breakable. In these pages, you will learn how to identify the pain you've been carrying beneath "I'm fine." Name what happened without fear or shame. Understand how silence can keep pain active in your body and thinking. Voice your truth safely and wisely without exposing yourself to harm. Break the power of pain by bringing it into the light. Rebuild emotional strength, clarity, and peace, one honest sentence at a time. Pain is not your identity. It is an enemy you can confront. And one of the most powerful weapons you have is your voice. Because when you voice pain, you stop partnering with hiding. You stop letting pain pollute your soul, and you begin the process of taking your life back. 50 reasons to speak to pain until healing breaks through. Pain is loud, but it is not Lord. Pain can be present without being permitted to rule. And one of the most powerful turning points in healing is this. You stop letting pain narrate your life, and you start answering it with truth, faith, and authority. Speaking to pain is not denial. It is leadership. It is you refusing to surrender your identity, your peace, your future, or your body to a voice that was never meant to be in charge. When you speak to pain, you shift from surviving to governing. You move from "I can't" to "I'm not staying here." You remind your soul, "I may be hurting, but I am not helpless." Here are 50 reasons speaking to pain supports healing spiritually, emotionally, and practically. 50 reasons speaking to pain matters. It breaks the power of silence. It pulls hidden wounds into the light where healing can reach them. It stops pain from becoming your identity. It interrupts the inner agreement that says, "This is forever." It replaces helplessness with spiritual authority. It keeps you from living in reaction mode. It draws a boundary around suffering instead of letting it spread. It strengthens your courage by making you confront what you used to avoid. It turns your attention from symptoms to truth. It restores your voice when trauma tried to steal it. It helps you name what hurts instead of carrying it vaguely. It exposes patterns, what triggers you, where you tighten, what you fear. It helps separate memory from identity. It interrupts the cycle of rumination and mental spiraling. It gives your mind a new script when the old one only repeats fear. It reduces the feeling of being trapped by what you feel. It helps you stop interpreting discomfort as danger. It can soften anxiety by replacing panic language with peace language. It encourages emotional release instead of emotional storage. It helps you grieve intentionally instead of bleeding silently. It creates clarity between what happened and what is happening now. It pulls your focus out of why me and into God is with me. It challenges shame that tries to attach itself to pain. It exposes lies that were planted during suffering. It helps you reject labels like broken, damaged, or too far gone. It strengthens your faith muscles through repetition and persistence. It trains your mouth to agree with heaven instead of hurt. It builds emotional stability because you stop being led by waves. It helps you recognize what you truly need: rest, boundaries, support, prayer. It reinforces self-respect by refusing to accept bare minimum living. It shifts you from coping to conquering. It changes how you see yourself, not as a victim, but as someone being restored. It helps you stop self-attacking when your body is already hurting. It replaces inner violence with inner care. It interrupts the urge to isolate and disappear. It creates a pathway for God's comfort to reach the raw place. It builds endurance because healing often requires holy consistency. It keeps bitterness from taking root in your wound. It helps you forgive without pretending the pain wasn't real. It creates space for hope to return. It keeps your future from being rewritten by fear. It helps you take your mind off doom expectations. It retrains how you respond under pressure. It strengthens your confidence that you can face hard moments and remain steady. It helps you stop rehearsing defeat language. It reinforces that you are allowed to heal. You are not being punished. It protects your bloodline by refusing to pass down unhealed identity. It models freedom for your children and the people watching your journey. It turns your pain into a place of testimony instead of a place of captivity. It honors the truth that God did not create you to be pain's property. He created you for wholeness. Speaking to pain is one of the ways you refuse to surrender your life to what hurts you. Every time you answer pain with truth, you are rebuilding your inner world. You are reminding your soul that healing is not a fantasy, it is a direction. And the more consistently you speak from faith, the more your heart learns a new language: rest, strength, courage, peace, and expectancy. The power of your voice. Science plus spirit. Pain doesn't only come from one type of wound. It can come from childhood experiences, rejection, abandonment, trauma, grief, loss, disappointment, abuse, sickness, injustice, loneliness, or years of being the strong one for everyone else. Sometimes it's obvious and sharp. Sometimes it's quiet and hidden under routine, success, jokes, I'm fine, and survival. No matter where it started, pain has a pattern. It tries to make you carry it by yourself. Your voice is not just sound, it's a signal to your brain, your body, and your spirit that you are no longer hiding. When you give pain language, you stop forcing your nervous system to hold it alone. And that is why voicing pain is powerful. It helps what's been trapped begin to shift, loosen, and release scientifically and spiritually. There are 3 dimensions of voicing pain, 3 ways. Truth exits the body and enters the light. Naming, giving the feeling an accurate label: fear, grief, rage, shame, heartbreak, disappointment. Vibrating, the sound of your voice traveling through breath, throat, chest, and nervous system. Witnessing, allowing truth to be received by God, by your own ears, or by a safe person. Voicing pain is not exposure. It's not oversharing. It's refusing to keep your suffering trapped inside your body like a private prison. When pain has no outlet, it doesn't vanish. It changes form. It becomes body strain, tight chest, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, stomach knots, chronic fatigue. It becomes emotional overload, anxiety, numbness, anger, dread, shame, confusion. It becomes survival behavior, shutting down, over explaining, pleasing people, snapping, isolating, staying busy so you don't have to feel. Many people think they have a personality problem when what they really have is unprocessed pain still living inside the nervous system. Why voicing pain helps it release scientifically, pain begins to leave when the nervous system stops treating the experience as a current emergency. Silence can keep the threat signal running in the background. Voicing pain helps turn that signal down in several ways. 1. Language reduces alarm in the brain. Research on affect labeling, putting feelings into words, shows that naming emotions is associated with reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, and increased engagement of regulatory brain areas. In plain terms, the moment you identify this is fear or this is grief, your brain can shift from panic reacting to processing. 2. A spoken truth gives the brain structure. Trauma and chronic stress often create a loop of sensations without clarity. Your body reacts faster than your mind can explain. Speaking brings structure. It turns emotional chaos into something organized and understandable. The nervous system calms more easily when the brain can categorize what is happening. 3. Voice changes breath, and breath changes the body. Your voice rides on your breathing. When you speak slowly, sigh, or use steady tone, you often lengthen the exhale. That matters because slow, controlled breathing is supported in research as a non-invasive method that can improve autonomic regulation and is associated with increases in HRV, a common marker used for stress resilience and vagal regulation. 4. Gentle sound vibrations supports rest and digest. Humming/toning practices have studies showing HRV changes consistent with stress reduction and stronger parasympathetic influence. That means the body can downshift from survival mode when voice and breath work together. So scientifically, voicing pain supports release because it lowers the brain's threat response, increases regulation and clarity, and helps the body exit survival mode. This is why, even before life circumstances change, people often say, "I feel lighter after I finally said it." The body is no longer carrying the whole load in silence. Why voicing pain helps it release, spiritually, scripture proof. Spiritually, pain loosens when it is no longer hidden. Darkness gains strength through secrecy. Healing gains strength through truth brought into light. 1. Pouring out is biblical and healing. Psalm 62:8, NKJV. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. 2. Crying out is a spiritual pattern of rescue. Psalm 34:17, NKJV. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. 3. God draws near to the honest, wounded heart. Psalm 34:18, NKJV. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite spirit. 4. Voicing plus confession is connected to healing. James 5:16, NKJV. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Voicing pain is not glorifying pain. It is removing its hiding place. It is refusing to partner with shame. It is stepping out of isolation and into truth. Moving forward from pain to peace. Voicing pain doesn't mean you suddenly get over it. It means you stop letting pain live in secrecy where it can shape your body, your relationships, and your identity unchecked. When you voice pain wisely and safely, you stop carrying the full weight alone. You begin to understand what happened and what it did to you. You separate who you are from what you experienced, and you reclaim authority over your story. So here is the truth that holds both science and spirit. Your voice is a bridge between what happened and what you're becoming. And every time you speak truth in a safe way, you teach your mind and body. I am safe enough to be honest now. Silence is deadly. Silence can look like strength, but many times it is just pain with a lid on it. It's the smile that keeps showing up while the body is breaking down. It's the "I'm fine" that becomes a lifestyle. It's the truth you keep swallowing because you don't want to be judged, rejected, or seen as too much. But here is what most people don't understand. Silence is not neutral. Silence is a container, and whatever you keep sealed inside long enough begins to leak out somewhere else. If pain has no language, it finds another outlet. If grief has no voice, it becomes weight. If fear has no expression, it becomes tension. If anger has no release, it becomes inflammation. If trauma has no witness, it becomes a loop. This is why silence can feel deadly, not because you're weak, but because the human system was never designed to carry unprocessed pain indefinitely. What you refuse to express emotionally, your body often tries to express physically. Silence doesn't always cause illness. It can help illness grow. Let's be clear, this does not mean silence guarantees disease, and it does not mean you deserved anything. Many things affect health: genetics, environment, hormones, injuries, infections, and more. But chronic unprocessed stress and emotional suppression can trigger, worsen, or prolong symptoms. When your nervous system stays on high alert for too long, it impacts sleep, digestion, immune response, inflammation, hormones, blood pressure, and pain sensitivity. The body can only stay in survival mode for so long before it starts sending louder signals. Silence may feel like protection, but over time it becomes pressure, and pressure always looks for a place to go. What silenced pain often turns into. Here are conditions that can be triggered or worsened by chronic stress load and emotional suppression. The body's way of saying, I can't hold this alone anymore. Mind plus nervous system, anxiety disorders, panic attacks / panic disorder, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, insomnia, chronic fatigue symptoms, cognitive fog / concentration problems, head, jaw, and muscles, tension headaches, migraine, temporomandibular disorder, TMJ / jaw clenching, bruxism, teeth grinding, chronic neck / shoulder muscle tension, chronic low back pain flare-ups, fibromyalgia. Symptoms can worsen with stress. Chronic pain syndromes, overall, gut plus digestive system, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, functional gastrointestinal disorders, FGIDs, acid reflux / GERD flare-ups, nausea / nervous stomach, constipation, stress-related changes can worsen, diarrhea, stress-related changes can worsen, inflammatory bowel disease flare-ups, Crohn's / UC symptoms may worsen with stress, appetite plus metabolic stress, appetite dysregulation, overeating / undereating, weight gain related to stress patterns, obesity risk association, stress / alexithymia links, eating disorders, risk association, elevated blood sugar / worsened glucose control, type 2 diabetes risk association, chronic stress burden, metabolic syndrome risk association, chronic stress burden, heart plus blood pressure. high blood pressure, hypertension, heart palpitations, coronary heart disease risk association, blood pressure spikes/stress reactivity, immune plus inflammation, immune dysregulation/getting sick more often, increased inflammation markers, stress burden concept, skin, eczema/atopic dermatitis flare-ups, psoriasis flare-ups, acne flare-ups, hives, urticaria flare-ups, breathing plus sensory, asthma flare-ups. Stress can worsen symptoms, shortness of breath symptoms during stress, hyperventilation episodes, tinnitus flare-ups. Stress can worsen perception, dizziness/lightheadedness during stress, hormones plus pelvic health, sexual dysfunction, low desire, arousal issues, menstrual irregularities, cycle disruption with stress, PMS/PMD, symptom worsening, pelvic pain syndromes, symptom worsening, overactive bladder symptoms worsening, whole body expression, psychosomatic symptom worsening, stress making physical symptoms worse. The real message behind the symptoms. Symptoms are not always the enemy. They are often the messenger. They are the body's way of saying, I've been holding too much. I'm tired of pretending. I need safety. I need rest. I need truth. I need release. And this is why silence is deadly. It keeps the messenger screaming while the wound stays hidden. The turning point, voice interrupts the cycle. Voicing pain doesn't mean you stay stuck in pain. It means you stop storing it in the body like a toxin. When you begin to name what happened, describe what you feel, admit what you need, and tell the truth in safe places, something starts to shift. The nervous system can come down. The body can unclench. The mind can stop looping. The soul can stop isolating. The healing process can finally begin. Conclusion. Silence is not strength when it costs you your health. Silence is not maturity when it traps you in suffering. Silence is not peace when your body is paying the price. Your voice is not just expression, it is intervention. And every time you speak the truth safely, you are choosing life over leakage, healing over hiding, and freedom over silent survival. Spiritual dangers. Silence isn't always quiet. Sometimes it's loud on the inside, thoughts racing, emotions swelling, prayers stuck in the throat, but nothing ever comes out. And spiritually, prolonged silence can become dangerous, not because God is offended by your pain, but because the enemy uses silence as a hiding place. When your voice disappears, your authority often disappears with it. 1, silence becomes agreement with the enemy's version of your story. When you don't name what's happening, you can slowly start accepting it as normal. Silence can turn suffering into identity. This is just who I am. This is my portion. This will never change. The danger isn't the feeling, it's the agreement. What you don't confront, you can accidentally partner with. 2, silence feeds shame and keeps you in hiding. Shame loves quiet because quiet keeps secrets alive. Shame says, don't tell, don't expose it, don't admit it, don't ask for help. Spiritually, hiding blocks healing because healing needs light. The longer something stays hidden, the more power it seems to have, until you finally speak and realize it was never as powerful as it pretended to be. 3, silence isolates you, and isolation is a weapon. God designed healing to include connection, His presence, and safe people. But silence often cuts you off. You stop reaching out, you stop asking, you stop sharing. And the enemy loves isolation because isolated pain becomes distorted pain. In isolation, the mind can exaggerate, fear can multiply, and lies can feel like truth. 4, silence keeps wounds unhealed, which creates open doors. Unhealed pain can become a doorway for cycles, bitterness, anger, distrust, control, unhealthy attachments, compulsions, and emotional shutdown. Not because you're bad, but because wounds need treatment. When wounds aren't treated, they don't stay neutral. They spread into patterns that affect decisions, relationships, and spiritual sensitivity. 5. Silence can turn into bitterness, and bitterness poisons everything. When pain has nowhere to go, it often hardens into bitterness. Bitterness doesn't just remember what happened, it keeps reliving it. It affects how you interpret people, how you hear God, how you trust, and how you love spiritually. Bitterness is dangerous because it can block peace and keep the heart in constant defense. 6. Silence blocks deliverance from fear. Fear thrives in unspoken spaces. The moment you name fear, it loses its mystery. The moment you confess what you're afraid of, it becomes something you can bring under God's authority. But when fear is never voiced, it stays unchallenged. And what stays unchallenged can start running your life. 7. Silence weakens prayer because it weakens truth. Prayer is not performance, it's truth in God's presence. When you stop voicing what's real, your prayer life can shrink into repetition without honesty. And without honesty, prayer can feel powerless because you're not bringing the real wound to the real healer. 8. Silence steals your testimony. The enemy doesn't just want to hurt you, he wants to make sure your story never heals someone else. When you stay silent, your testimony stays locked up. But when you speak, you become proof that survival is possible and freedom is real. 9. Silence makes you spiritually numb. When you shut down your voice long enough, you can start shutting down your sensitivity, your ability to feel joy, conviction, peace, love, excitement, and hope. Numbness can become a safe place, but spiritually, it's a slow death. God did not design you to live disconnected from your own heart. Conclusion: your voice is spiritual resistance. Silence is not always wisdom. Sometimes it's captivity wearing a calm face. Spiritually, your voice is one of the first ways you resist darkness, because truth spoken brings light, breaks agreements, and restores authority. And you don't have to scream, you don't have to expose everything, but you do have to stop hiding, because when your voice returns, your authority returns. How the enemy steals your voice. The enemy has many tactics, but one of the quickest and most effective is shame, the fastest silencer. Shame doesn't simply whisper, "You did something wrong." Shame goes deeper and attacks identity, saying, "So you are wrong." And once shame attaches itself to your story, it begins to control what you reveal, what you hide, and what you believe you deserve. It convinces you that your pain is proof of your failure, not evidence of what you survived. Then it starts building a prison out of fearful thoughts. If I talk about it, I'll be judged. If I tell the truth, they'll blame me. If people really knew, they would pull away. Shame makes you rehearse your pain silently instead of releasing it safely, because it tells you silence is protection, when in reality, silence is how the wound stays unhealed. Shame will twist responsibility into punishment. It doesn't simply say, "You could make healthier choices." It says, "You deserve to suffer because you didn't." It turns eating, exercise, and self-care into a courtroom where your body becomes the sentence, "I ate wrong, so I deserve to be sick. I didn't exercise, so I deserve this pain." But that voice is not healing, it is condemnation. Even when our choices affect our health, shame is never the answer, because shame doesn't correct with love. It crushes with guilt, makes you hide, and keeps you stuck. True healing comes when you trade punishment for compassion and accountability, learning from what happened, making one better choice at a time, and treating your body as something to care for, not something to condemn. If I tell the truth, people will blame me. It's my fault. Shame makes you hide because hiding feels safer than being seen. Scripture, Revelation 12:10, and KJV. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down." 2. Fear of consequences. The enemy uses fear to make silence look like protection. Fear of losing relationships, fear of conflict, fear of not being believed, fear of retaliation. So you learn to keep the peace while your heart stays in prison. Scripture, 2 Timothy 1:7, NKJV. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 3. Trauma conditioning. Your nervous system learns silence. If speaking up ever led to punishment, rejection, or danger, your body learned quiet equals safe. That's why voicing truth can feel terrifying even years later. It's not weakness, it's conditioning. The enemy exploits that by keeping you in survival mode. Scripture, Psalm 55:4-5, NKJV. My heart is severely pained within me, and the terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling have come upon me, and horror has overwhelmed me. 4. Invalidation and minimization. When your pain is dismissed, you're too sensitive, it wasn't that bad, get over it. Your voice gets trained to doubt itself. You stop speaking because you stop trusting your own reality. Scripture, Isaiah 53:3, NKJV. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. 5. Intimidation and control. Some people and spirits don't want your voice because your voice brings truth, boundaries, and exposure. So the enemy uses controlling environments where speaking costs you love, safety, or belonging. Scripture, Proverbs 29:25, NKJV. The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe. 6. False identity. I'm not the kind of person who speaks up. This is subtle. The enemy whispers labels. You're too much. You're dramatic. You're not important. Nobody cares. Your voice doesn't matter. Over time, you live under a silencing identity instead of your God-given one. Scripture, John 8:44, NKJV. You are of your father, the devil. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it. 7. Exhaustion and overwhelm. When life drains you, you stop fighting to express yourself. Silence becomes easier. The enemy loves that because tired people are easier to contain. Scripture, Isaiah 40:29, NKJV. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. 8. Isolation. Isolation steals your voice because voice strengthens in safe connection. When you're alone with your thoughts, lies grow louder and truth gets quieter. Scripture, 1 Peter 5:8-9, NKJV. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him, steadfast in the faith. Fear. The voice thief that makes silence feel safe. Fear doesn't just scare you, it trains you. It teaches your mouth to close before your heart can speak. It convinces you that your truth is dangerous, that your needs are too much, and that your emotions will cost you love or stability. Fear steals your voice by whispering, if you speak up, you'll be rejected. If you tell the truth, you'll start conflict. If you cry, you'll look weak. If you set boundaries, you'll lose people. If you say what you need, you'll be disappointed again. So you shrink. You become careful. You rehearse conversations in your head, but never have them. You keep the peace externally while your body carries the war internally. Fear doesn't only silence words, it silences identity. Because when you don't speak, you start forgetting that you matter. Disappointment, the voice thief that convinces you nothing changes. Disappointment is pain that has memorized loss. After enough letdowns, your heart stops expecting good outcomes. Your voice becomes quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because you no longer believe speaking will make a difference. Disappointment steals your voice by whispering, "Why bother?" You've tried before. They won't understand anyway. Nothing ever changes. It's safer to expect nothing than hope again. This is how disappointment traps you. It makes silence look like wisdom, but it isn't wisdom, it's woundedness. When disappointment is untreated, it turns into resignation. And resignation makes you live smaller than your calling, smaller than your joy, smaller than your healing. Unbelief, the voice thief that breaks your confidence in God and in yourself. Unbelief is not always loud rebellion. Sometimes it's quiet surrender. It's the slow internal agreement that healing won't happen, that things won't improve, that you're stuck, that you're too far gone, that God might help others, but not you. Unbelief steals your voice by whispering, God won't come through for you. You don't have enough faith. You'll always be like this. You're not worthy of change. Your prayers don't matter. When unbelief grows, your voice changes. You stop declaring truth. You stop asking. You stop knocking. You stop speaking life over yourself. Not because you don't want healing, but because unbelief convinces you that hope is a setup. The pattern, how these three work together. Fear says, don't speak. Disappointment says, even if you speak, it won't matter. Unbelief says, and even God won't change it. That combination creates a silent prison. Your pain stays hidden, your needs stay unmet, your boundaries stay unspoken, and your healing stays delayed. The truth, your voice is your resistance. The enemy fears your voice because your voice carries truth that exposes lies, language that names pain, courage that sets boundaries, faith that asks again, hope that refuses to die. And when you use your voice, you stop partnering with hiding. You step back into authority. You take your place again. When the cry breaks through, voices God responds to. Pain tries to do one main thing, silence you. It convinces you that your voice won't matter, won't be heard, or will cost you too much. But Scripture shows a different reality. Again and again, the moment someone cried out, the story began to shift, because a cry is more than noise. A cry is proof you are refusing to stay trapped. In the Bible, crying out is not weakness. It's a spiritual turning point. A cry is the moment you stop suffering quietly and bring your need into the open. Not every cry sounds the same. Some are loud, some are short, some are trembling, some are angry, some are full of faith, some are full of fear, but they all have one thing in common. They break agreement with silence. Here are different kinds of cries Scripture highlights, each one showing how voicing pain loosens its power. Crying out usually happens at the edge of capacity, when you've carried too much for too long. You may recognize the same internal pressure in your own life. Tight chest, racing thoughts, exhaustion, emotional shutdown, sudden tears, irritability, numbness, fear, or feeling like you're disappearing inside your pain. That pressure isn't you being too much. It's your system signaling something needs to be released. 1. The mercy cry, blind Bartimaeus, Mark 10:46-52. Bartimaeus cried out to Jesus while the crowd tried to silence him. He didn't get quieter, he got louder. His voice moved him from the margins to the center. Why? It shows pain losing power. The pressure to stay silent broke. His cry became the doorway to transformation. 2. The hidden suffering cry, the woman with the issue of blood, Mark 5:25-34. She suffered privately for years. She reached quietly, but Jesus stopped and drew her into truth. She told him what happened. Her pain didn't stay secret. Why? It shows pain, losing power, secrecy was broken. She was restored with dignity, not shame. 3, the naming cry, the demoniac, Mark 5. Jesus demanded identification. What is your name? Naming exposed what was controlling him. Exposure disrupted domination. Why? It shows pain, losing power. Naming forced the hidden thing into the light and it lost grip. 4, the persistent cry, the Canaanite woman, Matthew 15:21-28. She cried out for her daughter. At first, it seemed like no response. She kept speaking anyway. Her persistence proved she refused to be dismissed. Why? It shows pain, losing power. Persistence crushed discouragement. Her voice refused rejection. 5, the emergency cry, the disciples in the storm, Matthew 8:23-27. They didn't pretend the storm wasn't real. They cried out, "Lord, save us." The cry was urgent and honest. Why? It shows pain losing power. Honesty replaced denial. The cry invited rescue instead of silent sinking. 6, the short deliverance cry. Peter, Matthew 14:28-31. Peter began to sink and cried out, "Lord, save me." 3 words, immediate response. Why? It shows pain losing power. A small cry interrupted the downward spiral. Voice became a lifeline. 7, the honest faith cry, the father of the tormented boy, Mark 9:14-29. He voiced the sentence many people hide. I believe, help my unbelief. He brought faith and fear to the same altar. Why? It shows pain losing power, honesty ended performance, truth opened space for God's power. 8, the wilderness cry. Hagar, Genesis 21:14-19. Alone, overwhelmed, and afraid, Hagar wept. God heard and responded with direction and provision. Why? It shows pain losing power. The wilderness stopped being the end. The cry became the turning point. 9, the generational cry, Israel in bondage, Exodus 2:23-25. Their suffering had lasted long enough to feel normal, but they groaned and cried out, and God responded. Why? It shows pain losing power, voice disrupted normalization, the cry activated deliverance. 10, the rock bottom cry, Jonah, Jonah 2. Jonah cried from confinement and consequence, but voice turned the belly of the fish into a place of encounter and exit. Why? It shows pain, losing power. Voicing broke isolation. Truth created a pathway out. Conclusion. These stories prove a spiritual pattern. When the voice rises, bondage begins to break. Not because volume is magic, but because crying out is exposure, and exposure is the beginning of release. Silence keeps pain unnamed. A cry names it. Silence keeps pain alone. A cry brings it into the presence of God and sometimes into safe witness. Silence keeps pain powerful. A cry interrupts the hold. And this is the truth. Your voice is not a threat to your healing. Your voice is often the first evidence that healing has already started. The freeing power of tears. Beloved reader, crying is not weakness. It is language. When pain has been trapped too long inside the body, tears become one of the most honest ways the heart tells the truth. Some people can't explain what they feel. Some people can't find the right words, but tears speak anyway. And God does not treat your tears as random. He treats them as counted. You number my wanderings, put my tears into your bottle. Are they not in your book? Psalm 56:8, NKJV. That means your tears are not ignored. They are remembered, recorded, held with meaning. What you cried about matters to God. What broke you did not go unseen. What you endured did not disappear into the air. Heaven keeps record, not to shame you, but to honor your story and to testify that God was present while you were hurting. Growing up in the 70s, when strength meant silence. Growing up in the 70s, many of us were taught children should be seen and not heard, and dry your tears. Don't let anyone catch you crying. Those messages may have been meant to make you strong, but they often train children to disconnect from their own emotions. And when a child learns to silence pain, that habit can follow them straight into adulthood. You don't stop feeling just because you stop crying. You simply learn to do it quietly, privately, and internally. Over time, the message becomes a belief: my emotions are too much. If I cry, I'm embarrassing. If I show pain, I'll be judged. I have to stay strong no matter what. But the truth is, silence can trap pain, and trapped pain doesn't vanish, it settles. Tears help pain move. Tears are not just water, they are release. Crying is giving voice to pain when the mouth can't. Tears are one of the body's God-designed exits, an opening where grief, overwhelm, fear, and heartbreak can finally leave the inside. Many people were taught to be strong by staying dry. But the truth is, tears are release, not rebellion. They are not you losing control. They are you finally letting pressure out instead of keeping it locked inside. The negative side effects of always drying your tears: when you were trained to shut tears down, it often created hidden patterns that feel normal but are actually heavy. 1, you learn to survive by shutting down. Instead of feeling, you freeze. Instead of processing, you push it down. Over time, you may not even recognize what you feel until it shows up as irritability, numbness, or sudden overwhelm. 2, your body carries what your mouth never released. When emotions aren't expressed, the body often holds the weight: tight shoulders, jaw tension, headaches, stomach knots, fatigue, shallow breathing, and chronic stress patterns. 3, you become uncomfortable with comfort. If you were taught tears are bad, receiving compassion can feel unfamiliar or even unsafe. You may minimize your pain, laugh it off, or say, "I'm fine," when you're not. 4, you struggle to ask for help. Silencing tears can produce a hidden belief: my needs are too much. That can lead to over-functioning, people-pleasing, and carrying burdens alone. 5, pain turns into identity. When you're not allowed to feel, you can start believing your worth is tied to being strong, quiet, or unbothered. That creates a false identity. I am only acceptable if I don't break. 6, relationships can feel hard. Emotional suppression can make it difficult to be vulnerable, to communicate needs, or to feel deeply connected because you were trained to hide what's real. The spiritual power of tears. Tears are often a form of prayer when words run out. There are moments when the only thing you can offer God is your trembling breath and your tears, and heaven understands that language completely. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite spirit. Psalm 34:18, NKJV. Tears are also a doorway back into tenderness. Pain tries to make the heart hard so it won't hurt again, but hardness may feel like protection while it slowly steals your ability to receive love. Tears soften what trauma tightened. They reopen the heart to God's comfort. And Jesus himself honored tears. Jesus wept. John 11:35, NKJV. He did not rush past grief. He did not shame sorrow. He did not act like tears were beneath him. If the Son of God could weep, then tears are not a failure. They are human truth in God's presence. The emotional power of tears. Emotionally, tears do something powerful. They let the heart stop performing. Crying is often the moment you finally admit, that hurt me. I'm tired. I can't carry this alone. I needed love and didn't get it. I'm overwhelmed. Tears interrupt the fake strength that keeps people trapped. They let the heart be honest instead of guarded. And honesty is often the first step to healing, because what you refuse to feel cannot fully heal. This is why comfort is promised to those who mourn. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Matthew 5:4 NKJV. Mourning isn't condemned. Mourning is met with comfort. The physical power of tears. Your body is not separate from your healing. The body carries stress, shock, and grief, sometimes for years. Crying can be one of the ways the body unclenches. You may notice after a good cry, your shoulders drop, your breathing deepens, like the tightness in your chest eases and your jaw relaxes. You feel sleepy afterward. That's not you being dramatic. That's your system coming down from survival mode. Tears can be a physical reset, like the body finally exhaling what it has been holding. The mental power of tears. Mentally, crying can clear the fog. When emotions are suppressed, the mind often becomes overloaded. Racing thoughts, heaviness, irritability, numbness, feeling stuck, difficulty focusing. Tears can create mental space. They help the mind stop spinning and start processing. Many people feel calmer afterward, not because the problem magically disappeared, but because the pressure inside finally released. Crying is not the end of healing, but it is often the beginning of clarity. The positive power of crying. Crying is not weakness. It can be one of the bravest forms of release. 1, crying is release, not rebellion. Tears let pressure out instead of letting it stay trapped inside. 2, crying helps you process what happened. Tears often show up when the heart is finally admitting the truth. That hurt, that mattered, I needed love. This is part of recovery, not a setback. 3, crying softens what trauma hardened. Pain tries to make people emotionally tough so they won't feel again. Tears soften the guarded places, making room for peace and connection. 4, crying invites comfort instead of isolation. When you allow tears in a safe place, with God, with a trusted person, you stop suffering in secret. You give yourself permission to be supported. 5, crying is spiritual honesty. The Bible shows God is close to the brokenhearted and that he remembers tears, meaning your crying is not invisible and your pain is not dismissed. Tears can be prayer when words run out. Why God stores tears. When Psalm 56:8 says God puts tears in a bottle and records them in his book, it reveals something tender. God is not only watching outcomes, he is watching process. He witnesses the nights you didn't tell anyone, the private grief, the silent disappointment, the loneliness behind the smile, the pain you kept pushing through. And he remembers, not to keep you stuck in sorrow, but to testify that your suffering mattered and your healing matters too. A gentle truth for the reader. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let the tears come, not because you have no faith, but because you are finally telling the truth in front of the one who heals. You are not weak for crying. You are not failing because you're emotional. You are not too much. Your tears are proof you are still alive inside, and your heart is still capable of healing. A healing reframe. You were not wrong for crying as a child. You were human. You were having a real response to real life. The lie was that tears make you weak. Truth is, tears are evidence you still have a heart, and that heart can be healed.